Welcome to our PhotographyBB Artistry5's Comic Book Maker for Photoshop. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can turn your photographs into a comic book. As photographers and artists, our job is to tell stories with our images. So what better way to tell a story than to use our photographs and turn them into a fun and amazing looking comic book. Now in this bundle, we've included a number of different template files that have already been designed for you. When you first download the file to your computer and unzip it, you're going to see these two folders here, a color folder which contains all the templates for comic book pages in color, and a black and white BW folder here which include all the comic book template pages for a black and white comic book. You'll also see this funny looking file here, which are comic shapes. Now these are a set of custom comic book shapes that we've developed, and that is actually the only file that needs to be installed for this effect to work perfectly. So let's jump on over to Photoshop and I'll show you how to install this file and how you can start using the comic book templates. So now we're in Photoshop here and you can see I have a 4-frame template up on the screen here with 3 of the frames already filled with photographs. The first thing we need to do is install that shapes file, and the way we do that is going to the menu Window, Shapes, and when the Shapes panel appears here, you're going to want to click the top flyout menu right here in the corner. Click that and we'll go down to Import Shapes. Navigate to that file that you downloaded and simply click on the Comic Shapes file and click Open. That will import these custom shapes into Photoshop. And now if we scroll down to the bottom of the Shapes panel, you'll see this one here, PhotographyBB Comic Shapes. If you toggle this folder open, you'll see we've created a number of different comic book talk bubbles here, some shouting bubbles, some thought bubbles, and some really cool comic book effects that we're going to apply to our photographs to make them look more like a dynamic looking comic book. So I'll show you how to use these right now. I'm going to close the Shapes panel out of the way here. And we'll go back to the template that we have. Now there's 47 different template files to choose from, ranging from 1-frame templates all the way up to 7-frame templates. So there's quite a variety that you can use to tell your stories the way that you want to. So in this 4-frame template, I've already pre-filled 3 of the frames. I'm going to show you how to import your photos into a frame so that you can start using these templates to create your own works. So the frames are all labeled in the layers palette here, frame 1, 2, 3, and 4 for this 4-frame template. And to get your photo into one of these frames, all we have to do is double click on the Smart Object layer icon right here. And that opens up this one frame. We're going to place our photo into this frame. So we'll go to File, Place Embedded, and then simply select the image that you want to place into that frame. Now I think overhead shot of a baseball stadium will work really well with this one. So I'm going to select that photograph and click Place. And when you go to place a photograph, you can drag the anchor points to size this image to the frame exactly how you would like it. I think I'm going to go a little bit larger for this one. And I'll just slide it up a little bit, and I think that looks good. Once you've placed the image exactly where you want it and scaled it the way you like, click the check mark up here to place that image. And now to apply this to the comic book template, all we have to do is close this smart object right here. So we're going to click on Close, and we're going to save what we just did. Now this doesn't actually save any files onto your computer. It's just saving it into the comic book template file that we're working with. So we'll click Save. And you'll see it's going to run for a moment here a bunch of filters that will automatically turn this image into a comic book style photo. So here we go. I'm going to zoom in so we can see it. Let's go up to like 60% here. And we'll scroll to that. And now you can see that this has a very illustrated comic book looking effect, including this halftone pattern that you can see over all of the other images as well. Now this effect is customizable, of course, to your liking. You can open up the layer effects by toggling this little arrow here, and you'll see all of the various smart filters that are used to create this comic book style effect. So for example, if we want to remove the halftone effect, we can just simply click on the visibility icon for the color halftone filter, and Photoshop is going to re-render this frame for us without the halftone effect. And there we go. So now you can see the halftone effect has been removed from this frame, but is still on the other frames because they all have their own set of smart filters as well. So you can really get very detailed with how you would like to customize this if you want to at all. Now I have designed it to look a certain way, so we're going to turn that back on because I do like the way that looks. And I'll show you some other really cool things we can do with these template files to give your images even more of a comic book look. So here with this second frame, we have this little girl who's about to throw a pitch in baseball here. Now you can see that there's a little bit of a busy background, which is not usually seen in comic books. So we can actually remove this background and make it a solid color instead. And the way we would do that, I'm going to close this layer smart filters up here. We'll go to frame 2, that's the one we're going to work with. We'll double click on frame 2, the icon right here, to open up this smart layer. And what we want to do is isolate our main subject from the background. Now if you're working with Photoshop CC 2021, there's a very cool feature that will automatically remove backgrounds for you. So let's have a look at how we can do that. Click on the image layer to make it active in the layers palette here. And then we can go up to Window and Properties right here. And then just scroll to the bottom and you'll see this button that says Remove Background. So we'll just click that and Photoshop will automatically detect the subject and remove the background. Now we don't actually want this white background here. So what I'm going to do is add another colored layer in between these two here. So I'll click on frame 2, and then I'm going to add a color adjustment layer here. I think I'll go with a gradient instead of a solid color, but you could go with either one, of course. Go with a gradient here. And this is the default gradient that pops up. It's not bad, but we'd like to make that something else. So we could go with a radial gradient if you would like. You can reverse that and make it look like this. But I think I like the linear gradient. I'm going to double click on the actual gradient itself to change the colors. And you can choose any of the preset ones that we have here. I'm going to go back to black and white, but I'm going to change the black by double clicking on this bottom swatch here. I think I'll change it to a dark green, something like that. And I will change the white one as well. I'll double click on that swatch. And we'll go with a lighter green, maybe something like that. It's very subtle, but I think it's a little bit nicer than a solid background color. So we'll click OK here and OK there. And OK to set that gradient one more time. And now we can close up this Smart Object layer. And again, we'll save that. And Photoshop will re-render this frame now in the comic book style. So that looks pretty cool. It looks more like a comic book effect in this style here. And what we can do now with those custom shapes that we imported earlier is we can add some text frames and some effects into this to make it look even more like a comic book. So we're going to add a text bubble to frame 2. So I'll make sure frame 2 is selected in the layers palette here. And then we're going to activate the custom shapes tool, which is where we have those custom shapes. And to get that tool, simply press on the U key on your keyboard, and that will bring up the custom shape tool. You'll see it up in the toolbar here. Now, the first thing we might want to do before anything else is change the fill and stroke. Now, I have mine set at white and black, but Photoshop may have something else for your default. So double click on the fill and click on the color picker right here. And you can change the default to any color you would like, but we'll go with white. And then we'll click on the stroke right here and we'll choose a black color. So I'll click on the color picker again. I'll choose black. And then we can choose the thickness of the stroke, which will be the thickness of the black line that will appear around the custom shape that we're going to draw in a moment here. I would recommend 5 pixels, but you can change that and adjust that to your liking as well. So I'm going to choose a custom shape from the PhotographyBB comic shapes. And I will go with a shout icon right here. I'm going to choose that one. And I'll click the little toggle arrow to close this panel out of the way here. And then I can simply drag my custom shape any way I like it. Now I'm actually going to drag it like this. And then I'm going to, oops, close that properties out of the way. I'm going to rotate it. If you hover your mouse around the corners, you'll see it'll turn into the rotate tool. And I'm just going to hold down shift and rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm going to drag it maybe close to the edge, like this. And we're going to add some text in here. So I'll choose the text tool. I'll click inside this shout bubble here. And I'll say, throw it hard. And of course we can adjust the size of this text as well. Maybe we'll bring it down to 9 points here. And of course we can move that text into the bubble here as well. Now you can see that the bubble is slightly protruding out from the frame itself. Now some comic books go with this particular style and have these bubbles coming out of frame. If you would like to clip it inside the frame, click on the bubble layer, which is this one here. And then if you hold down the Alt key on a PC or the Option key on a Mac, and while holding that key down, if you hover your mouse in between these two layers, this little clipping layer, clipping icon will appear. And if you click the mouse while holding down the Alt or Option key, it will clip that layer to the frame layer. And there you can see now it's not sticking out of the frame anymore. It's bound within the frame itself. So this is how you can add text bubbles to your different frame layers as well. Now we're going to add an effect to this third frame, which is a really cool comic book effect. So we're going to click on frame number 3 to make that active. We'll activate the custom shapes tool again by pressing U. And for this one, I'll toggle this shape open, and I'm going to choose this really cool sort of starburst looking effect right here. I'll toggle it closed now. And all I'm going to do is simply drag this over my image and kind of position it anywhere that I like it that fits well. So I think right over here is perfect. I'm going to release my mouse. And you'll see it looks like a bunch of paths right now on your image. We'll close properties out of the way again. So what we want to do is on this particular shape, we don't need a stroke around each of these paths. We can actually change the stroke and go to 0. You could change the color of the effect itself if you like, but I happen to like white for this particular effect. And to see this effect now without all of these points, just simply click off of this layer onto any of the other layers. So I'll click onto frame 3, and there we go. You can see what that does to the image. Now once again, it is coming outside of that frame, so we can bound it inside the frame by clipping it to that layer. So we'll hold down the Alt key or the Option key and click in between those two layers, and that will tuck that special effect inside the frame, and that looks pretty cool. So this is how you can change your photographs into a comic book style, add some text, add some special effects, and there are, again, 47 different frames you can work with in color and also in black and white. So you can see how easy it is to get your photos into these frames. It'll automatically turn them into the comic book effect, and you can start telling your stories as a comic book. I hope you enjoy this particular effect that we've created. Have lots of fun with it. Happy photoshopping.